We're going to have a look at Hitler's consolidation of power, and this really takes place from January 1933, when Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, to August 1934, when Hitler became Führer of Germany. Hitler and the Nazis during this time controlled or secured control of all aspects of German government, German state. By August 1934, Hitler had combined the posts of Chancellor and President and was safe in the knowledge that also the army supported him. There was little or no opposition to the Nazi regime, and we're going to think about how Hitler and the Nazis achieved that in this short period of time. There were three obstacles to the Nazi or Hitler's consolidation of power. Firstly, the president. Hitler was outranked by President Hindenburg, and Hindenburg did not like Hitler. Remember, he had not chosen him to be Chancellor. That was not his first choice. Von Papen was his first choice, then von Schleicher, and then Hitler in January 1933. Another problem that Hitler faced was the Reichstag, the German parliament. Although Hitler was Chancellor, he still led a coalition government. Only 3 out of 11 cabinet ministers were Nazi. This meant that Hitler did not always have a clear majority and had to work with other parties to make laws and decisions. And finally, Hitler did face some threat from within the Nazi party itself. The SA under Ernst Röhm were threatening to split the party. They wanted to place the army under leadership of the SA. They wanted to become the German army themselves, and they were starting to become quite threatening. Remember that the SA were a military unit, or organised like a military unit, and so were very structured, very disciplined, and also had access to weapons, and they were no stranger to violence in the street. So they were quite a big threat. In his role as Chancellor, Hitler realised that what he needed to do was to have a clear majority in the Reichstag. So he called for a general election on the 5th of March, hoping that if the Nazis gained more seat and he controlled the Reichstag, he would be able to pass laws that he needed to get more power over the nation. And this would therefore be done all by the rule of law, the same way he became Chancellor, legal and democratic means. There was lots of violence in the streets leading up to this election in March 1933, and once again Hitler used propaganda methods to put across the Nazi message. However, a week before the elections, on the 27th of February 1933, the Reichstag building was set on fire. It is not known to this day who really started the fire, but a Dutch communist was arrested at the scene. And this was an opportunity for Hitler and Goebbels to exploit. They claimed that the communists were about to stage a takeover of power. Hitler used the Reichstag fire to convince everyone that there was a real threat of a communist revolution. Here you see the arresting of Van der Lubbe there, the Dutch communist, on trial. Hitler then persuaded Hindenburg to pass the law for the protection of people and state, ending freedom of speech, freedom of association and freedom of the press. These were emergency powers that the president could use in times of crisis or emergency to restore order to the state. And with the fear of a communist revolution about to take place, this was deemed acceptable. Hitler also then called for these fresh elections, using his new power to make life difficult for candidates who weren't Nazis. He therefore then increased his share of the vote and gave himself more power within the Reichstag. The Nazi Party won 288 seats in the March 1933 election, but did have to join with the National Party to gain a majority. They still did not have a clear majority within the parliament. However, with this newfound coalition, Hitler was able to pass the enabling bill that would give him and his government full powers for the next 4 years, and would mean that the Reichstag would have less power, would really just be passing the laws that the Nazis wanted passed. The Enabling Act was passed in March, on the 24th of March in 1933. It was the end, really, of the Weimar Constitution. It was the end of democracy in Germany. With the Enabling Act, Hitler was able to suspend basic civil rights. He was given the power to imprison any opposition to the Nazi Party, and he also passed the law against the formation of parties. On the 14th of July, we can see that down there. This made the Nazi Party the sole legal party in Germany. And by November 1933, in a general election, they won 95.2% of the vote. Hitler was now one step closer to controlling the nation. Okay, he could rule without the Reichstag, without passing laws through them. Now that Hitler had banned other parties in the law against the formation of political parties, he set about creating a new German society, again ensuring that consolidation of power, his grip over society. What he wanted to do was to bring other groups under Nazi control and then deal with any threats from within the party. So this was things like the army, big business, and all of these types of groups. He wanted to create a truly national socialist state, okay, where every aspect of German society, social, political and economic, was controlled and monitored by the Nazis. This meant on 2nd of May 1933, all trade unions were banned. The Nazis said their national community had been created and therefore there was no need for such organisations like trade unions. Strikes were outlawed as a result of this, and new prison concentration camps were set up for political re-education. The first concentration camp opened at Dachau in March 1933, and this was a sign that there would be no opposition or challenge to the Nazi state. This was the beginnings of what we know to be the police state. If we think about those threats we looked at the beginning, the threat of the president, the threat of the Reichstag, and the threat from within the party, the threat from the SA, Hitler had already dispensed with the Reichstag through the passing of the Enabling Act. In 1934, in June, he then dealt with the threat from within his own party, otherwise known as the Night of the Long Knives. And this is when around 400 people were murdered, mainly from the SS. This was a purge of political rivals in the SA. Hitler needed to win support of the army, and the SS wanted to break away from the SA. These were reasons for the Night of the Long Knives. Hitler had seen the SA as quite a threat in the first few months of his chancellorship. They had been a key part in the growth of the Nazi Party up until 1933. They were well known across Germany. Most of them were working class who had some socialist views as well as Nazi views. They were hoping that Hitler would help the workers. But mostly what threatened Hitler is that Röhm, the leader of the SA, wanted to join the SA and the army and to make them one German army under his influence. Hitler took action in June 1934 on the pretense that Röhm was about to seize power from Hitler. This information was given to him by Himmler, the leader of the SS. On the 30th of June 1934, Röhm and the main leaders of the SA were shot by members of the SS. And if you look here, there's a very famous cartoon which shows Hitler with a pistol in his hand. And these are the members of the SA here lying on the ground who've been shot. You can see then the rest of them, everybody coming into line, saluting with both hands now, so surrendering. Von Schleicher was also murdered. Hitler took this opportunity to get rid of some political opposition there as well. Around 400 people were murdered in total during the purge, and this was kept a secret from the German people for a little while. It was really seen as a turning point for Hitler and his rule in Germany. He got rid of all of his opponents. He secured the support of the army. The SA now had a minor role, and if there was any doubt about Hitler's rule and his leadership, it was clear that what he would do is resort to fear tactics, terror tactics, to get what he wanted. So the loyalty of the army was very important to Hitler. He wanted to secure the support of the army. And obviously one of the reasons for the Night of the Long Knives was because of the tension with the SA and the army. Hitler knew what he needed to do then, after removing the SA, was to try and bring the army under his control. After Hindenburg's death in August 1934, Hitler combined the role of Chancellor and President. This gave him a lot more power, and he became Führer, all-powerful leader of Germany. It was then that Hitler decided to get the army to swear an oath of allegiance to Hitler as his now Führer. And there you can see the oath of allegiance. I swear by God to give my unconditional obedience to Adolf Hitler, Führer of the Reich and of the German people. And I pledge my word as a brave soldier to observe this oath always, even at the peril of my life. And what is interesting about this oath is that it is promising obedience to Adolf Hitler, Führer of the Reich, not Führer whoever that may be, not Germany as a country, not the leaders of Germany, but to Adolf Hitler. So by August 1934, Hitler had managed to consolidate his power. That means get control over everything. From Chancellor in 1933, he was now President, Führer and leader of Germany. Opposition had been removed with the Enabling Act and the law against the formation of political parties. Trade unions had been removed. And Hitler had done this all through legal and democratic means, other really than the Night of the Long Knives. And that showed that Hitler had reached a point where he was willing to use police state, terror and fear tactics, which we'll come to see used much more outwardly later on.